The HOA Karen made her biggest mistake when she tried to grab my 3-week-old daughter from my wife's arms. She had no idea I'm an Army Ranger who's faced down Taliban fighters. Some battles are fought overseas, but the most important ones happen right in your own home. Before watching full story, comment below from where you're watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Let me tell you about the day I almost lost my mind over a HOA Karen who thought she could mess with my family. My name's Jake and I'm a staff sergeant in the Army Rangers. I've been through 3 deployments, survived IED blasts, and faced down armed insurgents without breaking a sweat. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for dealing with Patricia, call me Pat, Henderson, the self-appointed queen of Sunnybrook Gardens HOA. It all started on a Tuesday morning in October. My wife Sarah had just given birth to our daughter Emma 3 weeks prior, and we were still adjusting to the whole parenting thing. I was on leave for another month, which was a blessing because Sarah was exhausted, and honestly, so was I. Turns out, nobody warns you that a 7-pound human can completely destroy your sleep schedule. Sarah was finally getting some rest when I heard a sharp knock at our front door. Not a gentle, hello neighbor kind of knock, but the kind of aggressive hammering that screams, I'm here to ruin your day. I peeked through the window and saw her, Patricia Henderson in all her glory. Designer tracksuit, perfectly styled blonde hair that hadn't moved since 1987, and that pursed lip expression that could sour milk. I opened the door and before I could even say hello, she pushed past me into my house. Just walked right in like she owned the place. Mr. Morrison, she announced, not asked, we need to discuss your recent additions to the neighborhood. I blinked. Additions? You mean my daughter? Precisely. She pulled out a folder thick enough to be a novel. I've received multiple complaints about excessive noise during nighttime hours. Crying specifically. It's disturbing the peace of our community. I stared at her, wondering if this was some kind of elaborate prank. Ma'am, it's a baby. Babies cry. That's what they do. Not in Sunnybrook Gardens, they don't. She opened her folder and started flipping through pages. According to HOA bylaws, section 14.7, residents must maintain reasonable noise levels between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Your child is in violation. My 3-week-old daughter is in violation of HOA rules? Correct. Now, I have several solutions. She adjusted her glasses and looked at me like I was a particularly slow student. Option 1, you soundproof the nursery at your own expense. Option 2, you find alternative arrangements for the child during nighttime hours. Option 3, you relocate to a more family-appropriate community. That's when I felt something snap inside my chest. You know that feeling when you're so angry that everything gets very quiet and very clear? That's exactly what happened. Alternative arrangements? I asked, keeping my voice level. What exactly do you mean by that? Well, clearly neither you nor your wife can control this situation. Perhaps the child would be better suited with relatives or... She paused dramatically, professional caregivers who understand how to maintain proper discipline. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Sarah appeared, holding Emma, looking confused and tired. Jake? What's going on? Who is this woman? Patricia's eyes lit up like she'd just spotted a wounded animal. She marched over to Sarah with the confidence of someone who'd never been punched in the face. You must be the mother, Patricia said, reaching for Emma. I'm Patricia Henderson, HOA president. We need to discuss your child's behavioral issues. Sarah stepped back, clutching Emma closer. Excuse me? Behavioral issues? She's 3 weeks old. Exactly my point. At 3 weeks, proper training should have already begun. Patricia reached for Emma again. Here, let me show you the correct way to handle a disruptive infant. And that's when Patricia Henderson made the biggest mistake of her life. She actually grabbed my daughter. Sarah gasped and tried to pull Emma back, but Patricia held on, trying to take my baby from my wife's arms. Emma started crying, probably because some stranger was yanking on her, and Patricia had the audacity to look annoyed. See? No discipline whatsoever. Hand her over, I'll show you how it's done. Time slowed down. I moved faster than I had since my last combat deployment. In one fluid motion, I was across the room with my hand wrapped around Patricia's wrist, not hard enough to hurt her, but firm enough that she immediately let go of my daughter. Ma'am, I said, my voice dropping to what my squad used to call my battlefield whisper, I need you to step away from my wife and child. Now. Patricia looked at my hand on her wrist, then up at my face, and for the first time since she'd barged into my house, she seemed to realize she might have made an error in judgment. How dare you put your hands on me, she sputtered, but I could hear the uncertainty creeping into her voice. I'll have you arrested. I'll sue you. Oh. You'll leave my house, I interrupted, guiding her toward the door. Immediately. This isn't over, she shrieked as I escorted her outside. I have connections. I know people. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, the police, and the city council. I closed the door and turned to find Sarah sitting on the couch, shaking and holding Emma close. Jake, what just happened? Can she really do something about Emma crying? I mean, babies cry, right? That's normal, isn't it? I sat down next to her and wrapped my arms around both my girls. Honey, that woman is completely insane. There's no law against babies crying, and there's definitely no HOA rule that can override basic human biology. But even as I said it, I was already planning. See, the thing about being a ranger is that we don't just react to threats, we eliminate them completely. And Patricia Henderson had just declared war on my family. The next morning, I got a call from my buddy Marcus, who works in legal assistance on base. Word travels fast in the military community, and apparently, Patricia had already tried to file a complaint with the MPs about an aggressive soldier terrorizing innocent civilians. Jake, buddy, Marcus said, you need to know this woman is making some serious accusations. She's claiming you assaulted her and threatened her life. Marcus, I guided her to my door after she tried to take my baby from my wife's arms. I figured it was something like that. Look, I did some digging on this Patricia Henderson. You're not her first target. She's been harassing families in your neighborhood for 2 years. Single mothers, elderly residents, anyone she thinks can't fight back. What do you mean? I mean, she's got a pattern. She finds some obscure HOA rule, harasses people until they either comply or move out, then gets her friends to buy the properties cheap. It's basically legal extortion. That's when I knew I wasn't just dealing with a crazy neighbor. This was an organized operation, and my family had just become their newest target. Over the next few days, the harassment escalated. Patricia started showing up at our house daily, sometimes bringing other HOA board members with her. She'd stand in our driveway with a decibel meter, trying to catch Emma crying loud enough to document as a noise violation. She sent us certified letters threatening fines, legal action, and forced relocation. The final straw came on Friday evening. Sarah was struggling with postpartum depression. Emma had been particularly fussy all day, and I was running on about 3 hours of sleep. We'd finally gotten Emma settled when Patricia started banging on our door again. But this time she wasn't alone. She had 4 other people with her, all wearing official-looking badges and carrying clipboards. Mr. Morrison, Patricia announced when I opened the door, this is an official HOA inspection. We're here to document code violations and assess the habitability of this residence for child rearing. It's 8 p.m. on a Friday night. You can't just. Actually, according to Section 23.4 of the HOA Charter, emergency inspections can be conducted at any time when there's a potential danger to community welfare. She pushed past me again, and this time her little entourage followed. They spread out through my house like they were conducting a military raid. One woman started photographing everything: dirty dishes in the sink, toys on the floor, Sarah's breast pump on the kitchen counter. Another guy was measuring furniture placement and muttering about fire code violations. Patricia made a beeline for the nursery, where Sarah was sitting in the rocking chair, feeding Emma. Aha! Patricia exclaimed, pointing at my wife. Public indecency. Exposing yourself in a common area where inspection personnel might observe. Sarah looked up, confused and vulnerable, trying to cover herself while keeping Emma latched. She's feeding our baby in our own house, I said, my patience completely gone. Not during an official inspection, she isn't. This is a clear violation of public decency standards. Patricia started scribbling notes furiously. And look at this: unsanitary conditions, inadequate ventilation, improper storage of infant supplies. She was making it all up. Our house was clean, baby-proofed, and perfectly normal. But I could see what she was doing, building a case to claim we were unfit parents in an unsafe environment. That's when Emma started crying. Just normal baby crying, but Patricia dropped her clipboard and covered her ears like she was being tortured. There it is. Document this. Excessive noise levels, disturbing the peace, creating a hostile environment for community inspectors. Sarah started crying too. Between the postpartum hormones, the exhaustion, and now being attacked in her own home while trying to feed our baby, she just broke down. And that's when I made my decision. I walked calmly to the living room, picked up my phone, and made 3 calls. First call: Marcus, it's Jake. I need that favor you owe me. How fast can you get me a complete background check on Patricia Henderson and her HOA board? Second call: Captain Rodriguez? It's Morrison. Remember when you said if I ever needed anything, just ask? Well, I need a favor. Third call. Mom, hi, it's Jake. Yes, Emma's fine. Listen, can you and Dad come stay with us for a few days? We're having some neighbor trouble and Sarah could use the support. Patricia and her crew were still running around my house with their clipboards and cameras when I walked back into the nursery. Ladies and gentlemen, I said loud enough to get everyone's attention, this inspection is over. You need to leave. Now. We're not finished documenting, Patricia started. Yes, you are. I pulled out my phone and started recording. You've been in my house for 45 minutes without a warrant, without proper notice, and without legal authority. You've harassed my wife while she's feeding our infant daughter, and you've made fraudulent claims about code violations that don't exist. How dare you record me? Stop that immediately. Ma'am, you're in my house, uninvited, harassing my family. I have every right to document this harassment for legal purposes. One of her crew members, a nervous-looking guy in his 60s, cleared his throat. Patricia, maybe we should. We should finish our job, she snapped. This family is clearly unfit, and this house is unsuitable for children. That's when I smiled. Not a friendly smile, the kind of smile that made insurgents think twice about their life choices. Patricia, before you finish that thought, let me share some information I received today. I pulled out my own folder. Much thinner than hers but infinitely more interesting. Did you know that conducting fraudulent inspections is a federal crime when it's done to intimidate military families? It falls under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. Her face went a shade paler. Did you also know that your HOA charter expired 8 months ago and you never filed for renewal? Which means you've been collecting fees and conducting official business without legal authority. Now her whole crew was looking uncomfortable. Oh, and here's my personal favorite. Did you know that 3 of your board members, including yourself, have been buying properties that you forced families to sell at below market prices? The state attorney general calls that conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. Patricia was backing toward the door now, but I wasn't done. One more thing, Patricia. Did you research who you were messing with before you decided to target my family? What are you talking about? I pulled out my military ID and held it where she could see it clearly. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, 75th Ranger Regiment. 3 combat deployments, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and a very particular set of skills when it comes to dealing with people who threaten my family. The blood drained from her face. Now, I'm not threatening you, Patricia. I'm just letting you know that I've faced down Taliban fighters, survived roadside bombs, and led missions that I can't even tell you about. You really think I'm going to be intimidated by a washed-up real estate scammer with a clipboard? Her crew was already heading for the door. Get out of my house, Patricia. And if you or any of your friends come back, if you so much as look at my wife or my daughter wrong, if you even think about harassing my family again, I will bury you so deep in legal paperwork that you'll need a court order to buy groceries. She opened her mouth to say something, probably another threat about lawyers or connections, but I held up my hand. Before you speak, remember that I now have video evidence of you trespassing, harassing a military family, attempting to remove an infant from her mother, and conducting fraudulent inspections. I also have 3 witnesses, my neighbors across the street who've been watching this whole thing and recording it on their phones. I waved at the Johnsons' house, where Mr. and Mrs. Johnson waved back from their front window, phones clearly visible. So choose your next words very carefully, Patricia. She chose silence, which was probably the smartest thing she'd done all week. After they left, I held Sarah while she cried, Emma finally sleeping peacefully in her arms. Is it over? Sarah whispered. Almost, I said. But first, we're going to make sure she can't do this to anyone else. The next week was beautiful. Marcus came through with a complete investigation that revealed Patricia's HOA scam had been going on for over 2 years. They'd fraudulently forced out 12 families and illegally collected over $50,000 in fake fees and fines. Captain Rodriguez connected me with a lawyer friend who specialized in military family rights. Turns out, there are some very serious federal protections for service members and their families, and Patricia had violated about 6 of them. My parents arrived and immediately fell in love with Emma. Mom took over cooking and cleaning, Dad handled the legal paperwork, and I got to focus on supporting Sarah and bonding with my daughter. But the best part was watching Patricia's world crumble. First, the state attorney general opened an investigation into the HOA fraud scheme. Patricia and 2 board members were arrested on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and extortion. Then the families who'd been forced out filed a class action lawsuit. Turns out, when you illegally force military families from their homes, the federal government takes that personally. The local news picked up the story, "Fake HOA Scam Targets Military Families." Patricia became the poster child for everything wrong with predatory neighbor harassment. But my personal favorite was when the Johnsons told me what happened the day after Patricia's arrest. Apparently, she tried to flee town but couldn't afford a lawyer because all her assets were frozen pending the fraud investigation. She'd been forced to move in with her sister in a trailer park, the kind of place she'd probably spent years looking down on. Mrs. Johnson said she'd seen Patricia at the grocery store, looking defeated and desperate, trying to pay for ramen noodles with coupons. "I almost felt sorry for her," Mrs. Johnson said. "Almost." Then I remembered how she tried to take little Emma from Sarah's arms. 3 months later, Patricia Henderson was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all the families she'd defrauded. The fake HOA was dissolved, and the neighborhood voted to remain HOA-free. Sarah recovered from her postpartum depression, partly because she no longer had to deal with daily harassment and threats. Emma grew into the most beautiful, happy baby you've ever seen, and yes, she still cries sometimes because that's what babies do. As for me, I learned something important. All my military training, all those dangerous missions, all the times I'd faced life and death situations. None of it compared to the fierce protectiveness I felt when someone threatened my family. I also learned that sometimes the biggest bullies are just cowards who've never been challenged by someone who can't be intimidated. Patricia Henderson thought she was targeting another helpless family she could push around. She had no idea she was messing with a U.S. Army Ranger who'd been trained to eliminate threats to everything he held dear. The last I heard, she was out on parole but forbidden from any involvement in HOAs or real estate. She'd moved 3 states away, probably to avoid all the families she'd wronged and the legal judgments still pending against her. Sometimes, late at night when I'm holding Emma and Sarah is sleeping peacefully beside me, I think about that day Patricia tried to take my daughter. I think about how close she came to really hurting my family, not just physically but emotionally and psychologically. And then I smile because I remember the look on her face when she realized she'd picked the wrong family to mess with. The moral of this story? Don't mess with a Ranger's family. We don't just fight for our country, we fight for our homes, our wives, our children, and everything that makes life worth living. And we always win. Emma's first birthday party was held in our backyard, surrounded by all the neighbors Patricia had tried to drive away. The Johnsons brought their grandkids, the Martinez family from 2 houses down brought homemade tamales, and even old Mr. Peterson from the corner house showed up with a hand-carved wooden toy. As I watched my daughter take her first wobbly steps across the grass, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about our family, I realized that Patricia Henderson had actually done us a favor. Her attempts to destroy our peace had brought the whole neighborhood together. Her efforts to isolate us had created lasting friendships. Her harassment had taught me just how far I'd go to protect my family, and showed me I had neighbors who'd stand with us. Sometimes the worst people in our lives accidentally become the reason we discover the best people. And sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about making sure the people you love are safe to laugh, cry, grow, and live freely in their own home. Emma's still loud sometimes. She laughs loudly, plays loudly, and yes, occasionally still cries loudly. And you know what? That's exactly how it should be. Because in America, in our home, in our neighborhood, children get to be children. And Army Rangers get to be dads. And HOA Karens get to learn that some families fight back.